compensating tax on that. And that's the reason. It's something we are discussing with them, and that's what caused this compensating tax. Now next year, if the dividend is declared and there's not that much, you'll not find that coming in. But this is really because of the dividend that was paid, this can release this year, which you explained here that KenGen paid dividends for Kenya 6.17 billion. We declared 1.43 billion for the year, and then the arrears of 4.7, combined all these, and then when we released that money and did the tax compensating tax, it was showing that we paid less tax as compared to the compensating tax. Moving now to our debt equity looks like. This is the analysis now. This is after the government had converted 20 billion, 20.1 billion to 6 to equity. So this is now the mix. So you can see that again, that loan is 28%, 38, 47 is GOK guaranteed, and 37% is GOK on net loans. So again, still over 70% has government support in it. Looking at in terms of a profile of our loans, the weighted average maturity is now 14.85 years. What does that mean? It means that it's a long-term loan. Much of the loans that we carry in the books are much more longer term. And then again, the interest rate is weighted at 3.87, one of the lowest interest rate. If you mix everything else that we have, it comes from a weighted average of 3.87%. If you look at the composition of our loans, 86% are foreign loans and 14% are local loans. In fact, the local loans are the ones that are at a higher interest rate. If you just, with this it's paid off, you'll find that this weighted interest rate will become much lower because most of our loans are below 3%. Now, in terms of moving forward, funding options that we have, these are the options we're looking at, and these are and we want to thank them so much for the support they continue to give us. The projects that our CEO will be discussing with us after this really have been supported by these organizations and the commercial banks and the local banks. JICA, the Olkaria 5 that's coming, just the project that we are really breaking ground before this year ends has been funded by JICA, among many others. European Investment Bank continue to support us. They're also funding some of the projects that we'll be showing. KfW of Germany funding us. They're supporting some of the investment. As we speak, we are at different stages of discussing one or two loans. FD of France, we are discussing with them, the main wind and the rest. And then World Bank continue to really support us in a big way. And China Exim Bank that has been supporting us in drilling. And we are looking at all options. Currently we are thinking about what we do about private partnerships. Capital markets have just been there. Commercial banks, we cannot say thank you enough to all the banks that continue to support us. I think at this time I want to invite our CEO again to come back and give us the strategic outlook in terms of where we're going as a company.
Thank you, John. And just to go back briefly to that slide, just to also recognize some of the other financials who are not being indicated on this slide. For example, you had us introduce the ambassador from Belgium. They financed the first of the wind turbines in GOM, as a matter of fact, so we also want to thank you for that. The government of Spain also financed some of the wind turbines that we have in GOM. And more recently, we also have the US government that's coming in with some grants and financing of the renewable sources, and we also want to thank those people. They are not on this slide, but I just thought I needed to mention them. In addition to that, the African Development Bank, which so far has not been financing the generation sector, have also shown some interest in coming in, and we're expecting to get some projects financed by them in the days to come. Now, this is the KenGen, we're calling it the new KenGen. And basically here, what we are showing is that we have got three models that we've looked at. We have the traditional model, where the existing KenGen, we've been getting financing from debt, we put in some equity, and we build up the power plants, And that's how we've done a number of projects. But the future projects that we're looking at to do using that model is the Okaria Wellhead, the Gongwan Phase 3, which is being financed by Belgium, the Okaria 1, Unit 6, and the rehabilitation of Okaria 1, which we have African Development Bank, JICA, and others looking at financing for us. The Okaria 5, which we have the complete financing from JICA, and which we are about to award a contract, and then the Meru Phase 1, which is being financed by AFD and KFW. That's the traditional model. But more importantly is that when you look at the projects that we are going to implement in the days to come, and looking at the balance sheet, which John shared, and which of course is there in our financials, we realize that that traditional model will not take us as far as we'd want to go. And that is why we're looking at Model B, which is where we can have multiple legal entities with ring-fence risks and cash flows. So we're looking at project financing, special purpose vehicles, where KenGen takes an equity and becomes a partner with a private company to develop those projects. We already have one project where we have a transaction advisor, that is Okaria 6. We've never been this way before, and we needed somebody to work with us and to help us understand what's involved in this, to prepare the documents that will go out to tender for a partner with. And we think that depending on the success of this first project, we see that as a way that will provide us an avenue, rather it will be an avenue for developing a lot of the projects that will be coming up later, and that will include new geothermal sites. And we're also looking at an asset-based security. And I know we've talked about this for quite some time, and we've reached a stage where now the African Development Bank is working with us in terms of advisory and giving us the details of how we may do this, and some other advisors as well, to see how we can utilize this facility using the assets that already exist, and how we can raise money for more projects. Then the Model C, which is diversification. We are having a legal entity, 100% owned by KenGen. We think it's an energy services company that will first of all support the A and B. So the services that are needed will be supported by this company. But more importantly, this is the company that will be involved with like the drilling services that we are offering, and we've already done some 2 wells for a private company that is in the neighborhood in Okaria, doing consultancies, particularly for geothermal, where we, as John said, we have the skill that we've developed over the years since the 70s, and we've been able to export this to our neighbors, and we want to do more of this, and we're marketing ourselves. And the industrial park, which again, we've talked about this in some times gone by. We made very good progress. We're just finalizing the feasibility study just about this week, actually. And on the basis of that, we will be discussing with the various key stakeholders so that we can see how we can have a phased development of the industrial park. And then, of course, the STEAM, which John talked about to show the effect that is going to have on the company. And now going forward, we have a number of projects here that total to 725, which I had mentioned earlier. And you then realize that a lot of these projects are actually geothermal. It's going to give us up to 635 megawatts. And when you see the impact that geothermal has had on the accounts that we've just shared at the end of this year, then you can start to understand that by the time we come to this level, which is more than double the capacity of the geothermal we have now, that stands at about 540, then we really have a good future for this company. So the very first project that is coming in very soon is the Okaria 5, 140 megawatts, and where we are now is our financials, JICA. They have got the final report for the tenders. And anytime now, in fact, before the end of this week, they'll be giving us a go-ahead. And once that is done, we'll award the contract. And from about January next year, that project will start. And in a period of about 24 to 27 months, will be able to see electricity being generated from that project. Then we have Okaria 1 Unit 6, where we already have identified and secured financing from the financials shown there. And again, that is in tender stage. So those two projects are very advanced, and we will be seeing them coming in very soon. And I'll not name each one of them, but basically that shows the kind of projects we have and the strategy going forward. And finally, and just to highlight the main things here, what is involved in the consultancy, the operations and maintenance services, the geoscientific services, engineering and workshops that we have here in Nairobi, where we work on transformers, switchgear and all that. Then the commercial drilling, which we have seen a lot of interest in. Many people who are trying to develop geothermal. We have many private companies who have been licensed, and as they start, there's really no one else to go to help them in terms of the expertise. It's only ourselves. And it gives us joy all the time when we even find people saying, we want to visit our career to see what you've done there, so that as we do ours, then we'll learn from you. And in the process of doing that, we are seeing people asking, how can you help us? And we say, we are going to do the services. We have developed a model, developed the rates that we use for those consultancies for drilling services, as well as supporting the drilling. And we are finding that it's actually going to work for us very well. And then we have the industrial park and also the selling of steam, as well as the geothermal spa. I don't know how many of you have been there, but it's become very popular. I was there about 3 weeks ago, and on a weekend, I can tell you, the place is packed. It's packed with people. It seems that we'll have to expand it very soon. We are developing a business case for it. Initially, we were just doing it almost as experimental. We did it in-house, but we've advertised for a consultancy right now for somebody who can help us see how that can come up to make better revenues than it's doing right now. The carbon credits, you saw in the slides I presented that a lot of our energy is green. And we have people out there who have made commitments to reduce the emissions, the dirty fuel out there. And these people are ready to buy the carbon credits from us because we are generating from the green energy. And as a matter of fact, we have a number of projects. The Okaria 2, I believe, was the first one, and some hydro projects which have been registered for carbon credits, and we're getting some revenues from there. And this is another source of revenue. And finally, of course, the steam sales. So this is where I led, and I believe and trust that in this presentation that we've made, we've been able to answer a lot of the questions that you had when you came here. But nevertheless, we are here, and we'll be quite open to take a few questions from yourselves.
Thank you, everybody, for being here this morning. Again, it's a pleasure to have you. And I believe that you may have some questions. Albert hopes you have none, but it's likely that you have some questions.
Eric Musau from Standard Investment Bank. I think with regards to drilling services, I saw 1.5 billion for the 2016 financial year. Are there any, because it's a substantial figure, are there any estimates for coming years, how much, how many wells you could potentially drill, in coming years? And I think for dividend, I know this year you didn't declare dividend, and while it's understandable because you didn't raise sufficient funds and you have quite a number of projects, what is the timing of the next dividend payout, and would you maintain the same dividend policy that you've had, so the 30% of EBT or 50% of net income? Thank you.
My name is Paul Mwai from AIB Capital. My question first to John. I think looking at the tax rate, the tax payment of about 4 billion shillings, it's still slightly above the 30% that we would expect for corporate tax. I'd just like to request for clarification on that. The other question is that when I look at your half-year results that you announced in December, I noted a narrowing in the EBITDA margin from what you announced for the final year. So I would also request some clarification on that. But I'd also like to add my voice to the question of dividend. And I think it was unfortunate that you are changing your dividend policy immediately after a rights issue. I think in African tradition, there is what we call kurudisha mkono. You would have expected that after supporting you at the rights issue, ungerudisha mkono. So we would really like to hear about that.
That's good. Thank you so much. We do appreciate. Now, on the issue of dividend, I must say the board has not changed the dividend policy. The board has just made a decision this time based on the environment situations. The policy that we have is a third of PBT or 50% of PAT, subject to cash flow requirements and any investment opportunities. So looking from the investor's point of view and looking at what you have, Albert just showed us on Carry 5, 140 megawatts. Between 24 to 27 months, it's available. JICA has given us 45 billion shillings. 45 billion yen is ready. This week, Albert mentioned they are giving us the go-ahead. Mtu wa nje akikupatia na wewe utakunja mkono, nakwambia nimekupatia 45 na wewe ongeza kidogo ujenge nyumba yako. So we have put that. We have a small component which we as KenGen must put in consultancy. We put in a bit of admin, the project implementation cost, and interest during that construction. So that period, that's our component that we need to put in. It's going to come to around 6.2 billion, 6.2 billion, our contribution. $61 million is really our contribution. So we felt, and then they have put some money together with EIB and KfW for the Olkare 1 Unit 6, which is another 70 megawatts. There's a little we need to put in to build in the infrastructure and the admin. So we felt all these projects, money is ready. We can give you over 5 billion in the next 30 months. So should we give it out now or do that? And we are all aware that the rights issue was slightly shorter than what we had. I said we only got in 4 in the last financial year. It's a little bit that's coming after that. So based on this, the board felt the way our shareholders and investors have supported us, at this time the immediate is just let's get this thing off the ground, make more money for them, make the cake bigger, so the next time you cut it, you even get a bigger chunk, potentially a bigger chunk. So the board has not changed the dividend policy, it still remains, and we are committed to that policy. The board is committed going forward. It's only managing the environment to make the shareholders get a bigger share of the cake, and to be able to trigger off that project, because otherwise we would have to borrow commercially to kind of fill the gap. So that's really the main question around. So Eric, your question around dividend, that's really the timing next dividend payout. Definitely this will be reviewed. We are also, I must say, we're also discussing and also putting all our submissions during the budget presentation to the government in terms of compensating tax. And we are praying that there could be something done, even at the government level. And if something is done to support investors in the area of compensating tax, we'll be a beneficiary, and that will completely change the equation going forward. But as of now, there are discussions going on. There is now no guarantee on the compensating tax, but it's something we have taken up, not only ourselves, but together with a few other organizations to try to address. Now the tax payments above 30%, of course that's a calculation which is being done. Our advisors, the tax advisors, have worked on it and calculated. Of course, it's a tax account, so you put in, you have to add back the things that are not. So all it's a number that come out of the tax calculation account. There are many other things that go into that account, things that are not taxable, tax allowed, but they may affect the P&L side. But definitely what I can assure you is that the number has been reviewed by experts and audited. EBITDA margin narrowing, Peter? Paul? Yes, it narrowed a bit because there's some things we expected to have come. Particularly on the area of steam, we had expected a bigger number of the steam. And also last year, if you remember, the half year, the half year, we expected a bigger growth on the steam, but some projects have delayed a bit, particularly around the wellhead, that could have given us. But we are now, by the next month, everything is now, all the 25 megawatts of wellhead is now done, and is getting onto the grid, and you'll see that impact showing in the future.
As a matter of fact, and Eddie is here, who is my predecessor and was instrumental in bringing the company to the stock exchange, and even the dividend policy, the way it was prepared, as 30%, But there was always a proviso that, of course, you can only do that within, the limits that you have, that include the cash, that include what you want to do right now. I still remember a statement I used to read somewhere near the museum here when the Thika Superhighway was being constructed, which was always very interesting because people were very inconvenienced, particularly those who use Thika Road. And the statement was just simple, that bear with us now for a better future. I always think about that. Now, when you look at the projects that I showed here, the 635 geothermal plus about 90 wind, which we're going to put in the next 4 to 5 years, within a very short time, we really need, and I think Ali observed quite well, like a growth company, like a time when you're really growing, and as you grow in that 1 to 2 years, there may be a bit of that building up where the dividend was slowed down, not because we are running away from the policy, because the policy did recognize that there are times you may not be able to pay that 30%, but that the shareholders will be able to understand, yes, maybe for that 1 or 2 years, but then after that, when you start now to harvest from where you've invested, I think things will be better. However, the comments about the drilling services, yes, we may not be able to give you a number right now, but I can assure you that after the 2 wells we did and the revenue that you saw, we've already negotiated with the same developer. And the only thing is that the reason I may not be able to give you the number is, as you know, this project, on the side of the developers, they also have some issues to sort out, including as they talk with the financiers. And as soon as they do that, we'll be able to start the drilling again. So I do not have the number. We have a contract in place, we negotiated, we're waiting for that. But the speed of that drilling and that revenue coming in will depend on how quickly they get what they're trying to sort out first. But we see it as a business that is growing because it's not only that single developer that is near to us, but the others that have approached us. Then on the solar, and thanks Eddie for that question. And of course, Eddie was with us in 2012 when I was his business development director, and we did a feasibility study of the solar. And at that time, the solar was so expensive that within the feed-in tariff of 12 US cents per kilowatt hour, we could not develop it. And it may be worth noting that up to now, we do not have any solar power that is connected to the grid. And the problem really has been the economics of it. But as Eddie says, right now, solar prices have come down as low as 6 US cents per kilowatt hour, we are told. In South America, we have even heard of as low as 3 US cents per kilowatt hour, which is a very good price for the solar. So the development now is going to depend on 2 things. Number one, there is a policy issue that is coming up where the government wants to needing to get the best prices. They want to follow the model that's being followed in other parts of the world where you auction. You say you want so much. Can we have the person who can give the best? And I think